This is the Hentai Happy Podcast.
It is man-made. Brotherhood.
Me so horny. You were the chosen one, Heineken. You were the chosen one, Anakin. Star Wars, the Mandolorian review. If you just step back into a DeLorean, I could tell you exactly what's going on with the franchise. Anyways, Star Wars is a very prolific franchise with masterful works, garnering the love of its fan base, while other works amassing the ire of the century. For me, it all goes back to the late 1990s, where the family, friends, and neighbors all got together to see Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I remember my eldest brother was calling his brother-in-law, Guy, and my brother couldn't remember the phone number, so he called somebody on the wrong end of town and asked the eponymous question, "Are you Guy?" To which the guy responded, "No, I'm not Guy." Everybody in the room erupted in laughter. This was around the time, "Are you gay? Do your parents know you're gay?" question pattern was arising and becoming popular. Don't get me wrong, I had seen the prior episodes when I was 2 to 3 years old, and my older brother had just bought a massive Sony CRT TV. At first, he would play Final Fantasy on the PlayStation 1, and show my pops and eldest brother the graphics. Later in the early morning, AM, they would pop in a VHS movie in the VCR, and that's how it started. I had nightmares of Darth Vader chasing me in the basement, and finally catching up to me as I hid in the fabric closet. Let's take a swig of beer right now. The closet zipper would start sliding down by itself, until it hit my toes, where Vader would force choke me until I passed out or slice me, waking me up from my dream shaking in fear. Let's just say I didn't like sleeping and would use any excuse to stay up for fear of meeting with Vader again. This was a reoccurring dream until high school, where I finally understood that Vader wasn't a real threat and that his life was a dramatic comedy. A sad, manipulated man who couldn't control his emotions due to the turmoil of abandonment and the fear in his heart, much like the green little bundle of joy we know today. With that in mind, and my recent, at the time, foray into the world of lucid dreaming, I confronted Vader and wrecked him by trash-talking him with psychological warfare at first, then taking out a lightsaber to finish him. Knowing Vader's background, you can't help but feel pity for him and judge him like the sheep he is. After unwillingly burying my nose in a quintillion ton of psychology books and rewatching the sequels, it appears to me that both iterations of the character Anakin were born with a great deal of autism. At first you could say this was due to the actor of the child Anakin performance, but then you see the same level of autism present with the 20-year-old Anakin played by Hayden Christensen. So maybe after all the flack given to Anakin these past 22 years, they were due to the character who was written that way after all. Perhaps Hayden Christensen was able to accurately portray the autism of Anakin adeptly, and we mistakenly criticized his acting, when this whole dry and awkward movement was due to the flaw of Vader himself. I mean Anakin himself. That's right, Anakin. Not the dude in black that we fear. I would even go further to say that this theory is true with the way he is focused on the negative aspects of how people view him, and even in his late 20s, he is so quick to bend to what others say, believing lies without researching different scenarios, and he can't think for himself. Somebody created by solely midi-chlorians and an evil wretch is bound to have some character flaws and behave in a robotic and disturbed manner. It must be the alcohol talking. Give me a second. Let me take another swig. Oh yeah, alcohol, please. In a way, C-3PO and R2-D2 are more human than Anakin. If you see their level of engagement throughout the series, R2-D2 is an independent droid. He don't need no human. Damn. I hate to say it, guys, but Darth Vader isn't all he's cut out to be. pun intended. After losing limbs, his potential was cut in half, preventing him from being the killing machine he was meant to be, ironically transforming him into the stunted growth cyborg he is. So, the mystique of Darth Vader is debunked. The humanity of Anakin is teetering on whether or not his being and focus is to destroy, or whether or not his soul is meant to act as a vessel to harbor the murderous intent. I think Anakin was meant to be a killing machine, and that his soul developed later, or as a side effect of being conceived by the midichlorians, if he even had a soul. This much can be deduced by the recent revelations about how he was conceived after all. Now that we got Anakin out of the way, I want to talk about Jar Jar. Jar Jar was created as a mascot to lure the new young fans, the younglings, into the franchise. That much is clear. I was in my single digits, but I couldn't care less about Jar Jar. I couldn't even understand the fucker when he spoke, so my brain would block him out of anything. I viewed him as some orange frog type alien that needs saving, like a nonsensical damsel in distress. I think he was also there for comedic relief, to offset the serious tone of episode 1. Let's get real here. C-3PO at first glance is terrifying. I remember I watched C-3PO in the original Star Wars, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a human trapped underneath the armor pretending to be a droid. Moreover, you have Darth Maul, who is pretty frightening. I also had nightmares about him. Then you had the death of Qui-Gon Jinn, where I cried relentlessly in the cinemas, but there was no Jar Jar to lighten the mood after that. Anyways, when my nephew was old enough to watch the series, he started repeating phrases from the Phantom Menace, like, how rude, how rude, me so horny, I guess it did work to lure one kid into the franchise. George Lucas and his investors wanted the revenue from the action figures, but they needed a young audience, as their audience was growing old by those standards and couldn't buy action figures. Come on, guys, get real here. That's why Jar Jar was in there. If there's anything I took from the movie, it was that I had an overwhelming crush on Keira Knightley, while everybody else in the class liked Natalie Portman better. To be honest, I didn't know who the fuck Queen Amidala was until years later. I saw the maid speaking out of turn, and I was like, what the fuck? This bitch has the gall to micromanage her queen this way? I didn't even know who Natalie Portman was. So, there was so much things happening in the movie where there was never a dull moment, which is why I loved the prequels, and which is why I loved The Mandalorian. This could probably be a symptom of millennialism, where we just started multitasking with video games occupying the one TV, our parents talking to us while we eat our Lucky Charms, and a TV set on the other side of the room broadcasting A&E. The prequels were so vibrant in color, and it wasn't HDR. You don't need HDR to make something beautiful. Right now, people just use HDR to make anything beautiful. I think that's a cheat code and makes everything orange and red. If, for instance, you had given me 13 minutes of Rogue One with a shitty, boring gray and muddy red palette, I would have fallen asleep within the first 13 minutes, which actually happened in Rogue One. The opening scenes were so fucking boring, and that not even Mads Mikkelsen and Felicity Jones's cute face and arse could save it from me opting for going to bed early. There's rumors based on what Geeks and Gamers and Doomcock had said about that movie being a mess of just random footage being strung together, and it shows. Even after the heavy editing, the heavy so-called editing, it went through, first impressions were terrible. Listen, this whole waking up in bed staring into the wall sequence is so overplayed in every movie made in the past 3 decades that it just turns you off when you've seen it for the gazillionth time. What's the difference this time, really? It's a girl waking up. Oh my god, we have 4 minutes on that shot alone to properly establish that it's a girl. Oh wait, she's in prison, so she must be a naughty girl. Oh my god, an independent naughty girl getting herself in trouble. She's so badass, like Leia. Oh yeah, she's also in the Resistance like Leia. Oh my god. Whereas with The Mandalorian, the tone is properly established within seconds. You get the Wild Wild West vibe, and Mando takes no shit from nobody. There's action done right within the first few minutes. You understand that Mando is a bounty hunter, his costume gives you goosebumps, and he's a force, what the fuck did I write? He's a force to be reckoned with, along with some brilliantly choreographed fighting scenes. The music seals the deal. When I watched the first part of the Mando, I was thinking Clint Eastwood meets Space Odyssey, and I was correct. I did a background research on Pedro, and after liking his performance, his directors actually told him to research The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know, some type of old Clint Eastwood movie or some type of old cowboy movie. I think I saw like it in passing a few times, but never really cared for it. You get into the thick of things, and then you have episode recaps, which are brilliantly done and do not go overboard in the slightest. They are not impeding your progress if you are binge watching the show. So that's another small thing done right, along with the music. The costumes are good, the makeup of the characters are good, the acting is great, except for one episode where Mando is backstabbed by a young idiot who is attempting to enter a guild. But this character has such hollow acting that he brought down some fellow cast members as well, like the sniper woman. The exchange between those two was like a goddess trying to interact with a lemming, and pretending to understand what the lemming had to say with forced chemistry because the script called for it, and not because the experienced goddess could understand the lemming, in turn making the goddess look incompetent. The sniper wolf thingamajig lady was so in character and doing her job so well, it didn't blend with the hollow guild wannabe. The writing in that episode was horrible as well. Let me take another swig of this. It took you long enough, Mando. A good several hours had passed, and the young idiot had been holding the acid forever. And it hadn't dawned upon him to just take the acid back to the fucking guild and get the reward and enter the guild. The idiot asked for the seasoned Mando's help because he can't do shit to complete a guild entry-level mission, and then he turns on the Mando when he realizes he's very dangerous and has a reputation that precedes him. In any case, if I knew that Mando was that dangerous and his reputation preceded him, I wouldn't turn on him and try to kill him, you fool. I would try to learn from him. How does that even make any sense? The young idiot fits into the seduced typical sway of a bad guy category like he's a 26-year-old autistic Anakin. If someone says something, I must do it just because? Regardless, if I realize I'm outmatched, outgunned, and outsmarted, what the fuck? I wouldn't do that. However, that's not to say that the show is completely devoid of bad acting beyond that one episode. I found Bo-Katan to be way too heavy and macho for my taste at times. Her WWE wrestling girlfriend to be out of line as well. Too much spite and competitiveness for men that aren't Petro Pascal. So, you know, I don't think they like the men in the show. They showed me that they didn't like the men in the show except for Pedro Pascal. Anybody else who's a man is, you know, automatically dealt with suspicion or trash talked to. And I don't know what happened to their companion, the male guy. But, you know, he didn't have much say in anything. Pedro Pascal does a good job with the helmet on, to be honest. There's no reason to take it off like Boba does. Tamora Morrison can carry a show on his back without the helmet. When Pedro does take off the helmet, his words aren't as convincing, and this is where we see the difference in acting chops. Compared to Boba, who is Apex Mandalorian incarnate, Jin is quite inexperienced for someone so old, and is often found wavering to... Compared to Boba, who is Apex Mandalorian incarnate, Jin is quite inexperienced for someone so old, and is often found wavering between his emotions, much like Anakin, or teenage protagonists who are unsure of themselves circa 1990, and are just finding themselves. That could be acceptable if it was a Padawan or a youngling. It's not cute when it's somebody who could be like teetering on the edge of 50. I mean, there's only one Apex Mandalorian incarnate, and you have to differentiate between the two, I guess. But for someone belonging to a strict sect of the Mandalorians compared to the free spirits that are Bo-Katan, her WWE wrestling girlfriend, and that guy, and Boba, you would expect a certain modicum of self-assurance and trust for the way, because, you know, it seems that he is one of those it is written type of guys. But he doesn't deal in, you know, absolutes like they do. So it's kind of confusing, you know? First he belongs to a sect, then he's like, oh, I'm in inner conflict and turmoil. What should I do? The Mandalorians we've all met thus far in the series, spanning all forms of media, are all outrageously confident from the get-go and have a bit of narcissism. Even the weapon armor smith, could they have made the Mando Jin character a bit more flawed and deviating away from his Mando counterparts to make him relatable to viewers? Or did his affection for the Baby Yoda change him, like a common trope found on TV shows? If there's one thing the show firmly establishes, it's that your father's bounty hunter still got it, baby. The Duke Nukem of the Starverse. Now on to the negatives. Baby Yoda has the same sound effects. It gets annoying after a time, especially when you learn he's not a baby and has been trained at the Jedi Temple, with several Jedi Knights serving as his master. Inconsistencies. Boba can take down leagues of stormtroopers, but then gets caught off guard dealing with Bo-Katan's scrub face to face for nothing but the sake of girl power. Just a few observations. I could definitely surmise that if the fight had dragged on, Ahsoka would have wasted Mando. Mando is too inexperienced given his age, but you would think somebody who adheres to a strict Mandalorianism training regimen would be better at his craft while taking on a lifeload of bounty hunts. Suddenly, after difficulties with octopuses, he's able to defeat the commander with a laser sword, something not even Bo-Katan could do, and let alone track him down, but her crew is able to shit on Boba, but Boba can decapitate Jin.
So, this like a triangle? It's like, who's gonna die?
Hot take warning. Speaking of decapitations, first we have the revival of Darth Maul, then we have the revival of Boba Fett, then we have the revival of Darth Sidious, then we have the revival of that sniper girl Fennec Shand. Can we just fucking revive Mace Windu while we're at it? I don't care if it takes away from the heaviness of the turning point through which Anakin turned to the dark side, because Anakin himself and his whole life was a joke, a comedic dramedy. It would make even more sense to revive Mace Windu to show that Anakin was a joke, that his whole life was a joke, and that he was just a fetch and go dog for the Emperor who outlived him, and he even couldn't do that right. It would bring to light that Anakin had all the tools in the toolbox, but not the brain to use them. I mean, everybody who's coming back as a Force ghost. Everybody! Which is essentially a spirit in the form of midi-chlorians hovering around. We didn't even see Mace Windu's body. Even Darth Sidious told his minions that if you don't see the body, he's not dead, in regards to Yoda. So we never saw Mace Windu's body, so that means he's not dead, motherfuckers. It's hard to believe that Mace Windu is dead given his connection to the Force and skill level. When lesser beings such as Darth Maul managed to survive an unsurvivable fall into some legendary pit. God. Bring him back. People talk about Luke, but I'm fucking tired of Luke. I never really liked Luke as a character. My favorite characters in the old movies were Boba Fett and Han Solo. The prequels were Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, Qui-Gon Jinn, Sabe, Amidala, Jango Fett, Count Dooku, Darth Maul. Looking back, there was a ton of good characters and likable characters in the prequels. I just don't get the hate. Heck, I even liked C-3PO human-cyborg relations, even though he's an android. I guess cyborg has a different meaning in the past. More than Luke, given Mark Hamill's eccentric behavior in the past few years, after he was caught bumming cigs from a used public ashtray, was bent out of shape doing drugs, and jumped on the politics wagon, because that's, what the rest of Hollywood is doing to get more gigs, and be with the in-group to circle jerk their agenda. It's very telling that by going full Orange Man bad, he is begging for work. I could care less about politics. I don't like the bullshit he brings to the table into the fantasy espace, man. It's my fantasy espace, my fantasy space. When I saw the superimposed Mark Hamill face on another actor, I felt terrible. I wanted to puke. I knew right then and there that Mark Hamill's brown nosing had paid off. We don't have to carbon copy Mark Hamill staring at us in the fucking face. Just give us a good actor. Unfortunately for Max Lloyd-Jones, he never got his chance, and the first result that comes up when you search who played Skywalker the Mandalorian is actor Mark Hamill in huge bold letters in a paragraph that wears no mention of Max Lloyd-Jones. I wouldn't call it acting, more like CGI, because we both know that Mark Hamill can't play Luke. He's too washed up. I never cared for Luke, and this is my honest opinion. But Mark Hamill could sure do one hell of a batshit crazy Joker, but even then, his voice is failing. Fuck actors being a shell of that has-been Mark Hamill with no brain filter, who can't even be a positive role model for kids worldwide for the discipline of their minds, their bodies, and souls, and get somebody new in there. I don't care about looks in this day and age because that takes away from your options in terms of good acting. The hair can be dyed or a wig can be used, and the eyes are optionally superimposed for the continuity purposes. Just get somebody new. He doesn't have to be Luke's sequel personality. Luke is a Jedi Master, now in tune with the Force. He doesn't have to be the same person. Note, I didn't watch the recent movies involving Rey or whatever the fuck she's called. I'm not a masochist. So, did the final episode of The Mandalorian reach me, peer into my soul, and grab my heart like it did to the vast majority of the Star Wars fandom? No, it definitely did not. You can say the quiet and awkward moments between Mando, Luke, and the rest of the cast actually put me off. Who is this asshole who thinks he's better than the rest of them, who speaks to them like they are beneath? I think Mando and the rest of the crew did a better job conveying their characters throughout their 16-episode series than Luke did in his entire 3-episodic movies. The fans played up Luke like he's some type of deity. And look at how this fucker treats the cast, who did all they could to keep the green Furby safe. Not even a thank you. Was this because they feared Mark Hamill opening his mouth would detract from the ending, or is it a possibility? It just doesn't sit well with me that Hamill's character was treated like royalty when in essence he did shit all in the Mandalorian series. Tit for tat. They just know Luke is a Jedi. Why are they acting like he's the second coming of Christ? I mean, you know, they've treated other Jedi with indifference as well. Why are they treating this one like he's different? Why was Jin able to speak to Ahsoka and not speak to Luke on proper terms? If I was a Mando and this unknown walks into my scene trying to take away my kid and not talking to me at length, I would wisecrack something along the lines, what's the matter? Cat got your tongue? You a mute or something? The most likely, or actually the person most likely to actually make Luke say more than a few words was Boba Fett, who was conveniently written out of that scene for lack of better terms of revenge. I don't know. Imagine how that would have played out. I'm the guy who put you in the straw. Oh, you're the guy who gave me that fucking scar on my face. You son of a... That would have been a nice scene. Damn it. Why did they write him out of that scene? Damn it, damn it, damn it. If there's one thing that really pisses me off, it was the lack of humbleness by Luke. I'm calling out the scriptwriters. I'm calling out the Luke character because I feel nothing towards Luke, and I can objectively say that the very moment took any goodwill the show had with the newly established characters and buried it like they are non-essential to the series. It took my investment in the show and was like, oh, you like these characters? Well, they're treated as nothings by the head honcho. How do you like that? I don't know whose retarded idea it was, but they really need to retcon that scene. I'm sure the Luke circle jerkers loved it, but for us who don't see Luke the same way that they do, it was honestly a slight. The episode was going great until that point. For me, I found the series hovering around a 7 and 8 on 10 rating range, with it being held back because of the over-reliance on subplots and side quests that convoluted the main story instead of the true essence of a Mandalorian, and that's bounty hunting on unique missions. I think Mando did good to capture some of the vibrant scenery we know from Naboo in the woodlands, right? It was kind of similar. I don't mind Gina Carano's character. I thought it was a nice addition. Somebody young girls can look up to, because obviously they needed somebody like that because of the forced wokeness, but they picked the right person for the job who doesn't toot their own horn and is humble. Oh wait, they didn't have Bo-Katan and her girlfriend, the sniper woman, as well. Whoa! The females outnumber the males. The Mando always being broke and scrounging for Republic credit is not cool, especially at the age of 45. At an age where you expect him to be more settled into his role, have a bird's nest, and be self-sufficient when he's always trying to follow the Mandalorian code. I'm sure a good portion of his earnings went towards the younglings, but does the man have a bit of common sense for an emergency fund to get spare parts and repair his transport? I feel like the Mandalorian was a side quest heavy game where you have to scramble for cash, but you didn't play it, you just watched it instead. In the next season of Mando, I want the character to actually face off with baddies using skills and not having a child save him from certain death. Actually, I think having a child actually handicap the bounty hunter a bit to show off his skills. I want to see what he's made of. I want to see more fights with Ahsoka, like with Asuka, but done until completion. I want more MacGyvering with the dragon thing. Like, I can say, without a doubt, that the first 2 seasons of the Mando were good, not amazing, not what everybody is clamoring to. I'm just worried they're going to go the opposite route with season 3, and the first 2 seasons were mistakes because they weren't approved by Kathleen with a K. Is there room for improvement? Hell yeah, there is a vast room for improvement. I just detailed a few things off the top of my head. Who knows what I would have talked about had I actually taken down notes while watching. But I'm not going to subject myself to such horror if I am actually trying to enjoy myself. What's your opinion? How did you find this series? Did you suck on Luke's dingling too? I'd like to thank my channel supporters. Thank you for supporting me during these hard times. I wish you all the best of luck, health, wealth, love, protection to all of you. We have Caleb Stewart, we have William Jackson, and we have Sabrina Snow. Thank you very much. I know these are trying times. We'll get through this. Thank you.
This is the Hentai Happy Podcast.
Brotherhood.